founder of Language Tree Online, and we're excited that you could join us today. A little bit about Language Tree. We've been around since 2003, and we specialize in English language development. Today, we're specifically going to talk to you about tools for our secondary English learners, so those students in middle and high school. And excuse me, also joining and presenting with me is David Noyes. He is the head of our curriculum. A little background on David. He's been teaching over 28 years with Long Beach Unified School District here in Southern California. David has his national boards in English language development, and he's also the winner of several awards for his curriculum. So with that, before I turn it over to David, I want to just kind of give you an idea of what we're going to do. We're going to do a short overview presentation. We'll walk you through that, and then from there, I'm going to log in and take you through a demo so you can see the support curriculum firsthand. And then, at the end, we can open it up for Q&A. But as Anna said, if you have questions along the way, please just put them in the chat box, and we can answer them as they come in. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to David.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to, again, welcome all of you. And I, again, will be talking a little bit about just some background around how this product was developed. As an English language development coach in the school district I work at, I've been working at many middle and high schools, and the kind of the whole moral imperative around creating curriculum for our newcomers was we have a very large influx of newcomers coming from many different countries with many different languages. And we were noticing that we were not able to effectively meet their needs. We had very limited resources. And along with the shifts in language development for Southern California, it happened in 2012 with the influx of Common Core, and also in other states, we noticed that the language development standards have changed a little bit for the better, but we were not apprised of all that. We haven't been keeping track of how we're meeting the needs of our English learners and integrating those standards. And lastly, I noticed that we have summative assessments in the state of California and other states. But there's not a lot of formative assessments. So we're not looking at ways that we can get feedback from our students in a formative way just to modify or amplify our instruction for our English learners. So that was kind of the moral imperative. So what we did was we did a backwards planning process. We looked at several different standards at some of the in different states that had English language development standards, most specifically the California English language development standards, because they were much more granular. We had 3 buckets or 3 sections that we looked at. One was collaborative listening and speaking, and that's really how students are interacting in meaningful ways in the 3 modes of communication. That's interpretive, productive, and collaborative. We also looked at the foundational literacy skills for middle and high school, looking at some of those transferable and non-transferable sounds, letter identification, syntax, those skills that are essential just to develop reading proficiency in English. And then lastly, language function and construction. And that's really the engine. That's kind of the skills that we wanted our students need to know, and around writing, around connecting words, paragraphs, that kind of thing. So, and also parts of speech. So these are the standards that we used as our backwards planning process around first the assessment and then the lessons themselves. And just to give you a couple of a little more background of where we were going is we identified individual standards and again developed discrete assessments around that, but also discrete lessons. Instead of integrating many different standards where it's hard to tell what our language standard the student is working on, we developed lessons that individually address each standard. We also looked at integrating familiar social and academic contexts. We noticed that our students had some background and were developing background in the middle and high school. So we used that culture of the middle and high school to develop functional vocabulary and create vignettes around things that they could connect to on an everyday basis. And then lastly, this is a big one for me, multisensory input. We really wanted our students to have multisensory input, so they were able to make meaning out of not only just the words, but also the pictures and the auditory input as well. So again, just to kind of lay out the foundation of the product itself, we have foundational literacy skills focusing on letter knowledge, phonemic awareness, and phonics. That collaborative listening and speaking, I kind of made reference to that. Collaborative, interpretive, productive modes, standards there. And then also the last big instruction, cohesion of text, expanding and enriching ideas, and connecting and condensing texts were our big buckets for these lessons.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk for a minute about the entry and exit assessment modules. And it'll be really clear when we go in a little bit and I demo it firsthand. But essentially what we did is we created a very in-depth assessment. We put it into those 3 buckets that David mentioned before, each one having a total of 25 questions. So all in, it's a 75 question assessment. The entry assessment, of course, is to take that newcomer or beginning student and really find out what they may or may not know, because they're all coming in with varying degrees of literacy. One of the things that we did that's very unique is we just put 1 standard per question. So in the assessment, there may be multiple questions with that same single standard. The reason for that is a lot of the state testing will embed multiple standards into a question, and that can be useful to see overall how a student does and perhaps for redesignation, but it doesn't help with being able to see at the skill level what they may or may not know, which is really important, and then that helps determine the lessons or the lesson modules that they need to go through. And the other piece is that whole concept of equity of access for our English learners. So making sure that we give them everything in our power to help comprehend what they're being asked. And we do that through that multi-sensory technique. So there's image support, there's the written text, there's audio support, there's video support. So really just helping them comprehend, because I know that's a real challenge, is they may know more than is realized, but they just don't understand what's being asked. And then the exit assessment is very similar to the entry assessment. The questions aren't identical, but we're assessing the same thing. And we're looking at the growth after they've gone through all the curriculum. So the picture here is just showing you an example of an assessment question. So you can see there's the written text, there's the audio support, and there's the image support. And then the first lesson module that we want to talk about briefly is the foundational literacy skills. So one of the things we do is we use a virtual professor, and essentially he is on video and giving the video input or the lesson, so to speak. In this case, we're teaching sentence syntax. So you can see that not only is the virtual professor talking, but the text is on the screen and we highlight the verb and where it should be placed in yellow. So again, trying to help drive the point home for comprehension. And then on the right-hand side here, we just wanted to show the things or what's being taught standards-based in this module. So things from letter identification, upper and lower case, sequencing, sound symbol relationship, vowel sounds, both the long and short, consonant sounds, the beginning and ending sounds of words, medial vowel substitution, and sentence syntax. So one thing before we move on from this module, I wanted to mention that it's been really great feedback is that this content is very relevant for the middle and high school student. And the reason I'm bringing that up is I've heard from many educators that there's really not a lot, if anything, out there supporting the secondary students at the foundational level, where most of this is taught in kindergarten. And so things being used were cutesy animated characters and things like that, which turned to be very off-putting to a 9th, 10th grade student. So we were very cognizant of that when we developed it and made it relevant for a middle and high school student.
The collaborative listening and speaking module, we just wanted to give you a look at some of the connected standards. They are listed there on the right-hand side of the screen. But what we did was we really tried to get both, we had to pulling some expository or informational text, but things that were high interest and things that we were hoping our students had some background on. That way we were able to really designate the language standard and not overwhelm them with content that they didn't really understand. So that's why we provided them with some different buckets around science, social studies, and also just overall classroom and school culture, but things that we were, again, able to just really pinpoint those language standards instead of having them be confused with understanding the content. The language function and construction, again, on the right, you're going to see how the standards that are big ticket standards, language standards that we focused on. Again, just kind of that multisensory input, providing students with examples that they could connect to around functional vocabulary, things that they see and hear every day. And really trying to be much more granular about teaching some of those language standards. For newcomers, it's especially depending on the language that they're speaking, whether it's idiosyncratic or it's a Latin-based language where there's some transfer, we really wanted to keep, just have equity in how these students were moving through some of these video lessons. And then lastly, before we give you a chance to kind of look at the lessons themselves, for each of the lessons that the students go through, the teacher also has a downloadable lesson that they can download to do some designated or small group instruction. And essentially it goes along the same language objective or standard, but what we wanted to do here was slow things down for the teacher and the students to provide them some more language support and opportunities for the teacher to do some more formative assessment. So there's built-in formative assessment opportunities. We do a real gradual release of responsibilities, starting from that skill review, going into guided practice, and then into independent practice. So the teacher can be kind of collecting data along the way, informative data, that they can use to really see where the students are landing with these lessons.
Okay, well, thanks, David. So let me escape, and I'm going to bring up, I've already logged in. So I'm logged in as an administrator. And as you can see over here on the left-hand side, there's the courses. So let's jump right into the entry assessment. So as I was mentioning, and David mentioned the buckets, right? So we have foundational literacy skills portion of the assessment, and there's 25 questions. Then we have the collaborative speaking and listening bucket, and there's 25 questions. And then the language function and construction bucket with also 25 questions. So again, it's very thorough, 75 questions in total. And one of the nice things is, just to point out, let's say that a student is going through foundational literacy, they get through question number 5, and that's all they get through. That's fine, because next time they log in, it will just pick up right where they left off. So I want to show you an example. We'll go into language function and construction. And I'm going to show you a couple examples of questions here for the assessment.
Look at the picture and listen to this sentence. Angela went to the library to check out a book. Which word below can be used to replace the name Angela? She, he, it, they.
Okay, and you can see it's an assessment, so they'll make their selection and then they'll just go to the next question. Let me jump down here, show you one more.
Which word below can replace the word homework in the sentence? The teacher gives homework every day.
Okay, so you can see, I just wanted to show you firsthand that these two questions are all about pronouns and whether they understand pronouns. So now let's go back up. And again, we were just in the collaborative listening, or excuse me, language function and construction portion of the assessment. Now we're going to go into the lesson modules. You can see it's those same three buckets, so they correspond with the standards-based assessment to the standards-based lessons. We'll go into language function and construction, and we'll look at lesson number 2, because you can see lesson number 2 is all on pronouns. Okay.
In this lesson, we will learn about personal pronouns and how they are used in reading and writing. Let's review. A personal pronoun can refer to a person, place, thing, or idea. Here's an example. The boy walks to school. He walks to school. The pronoun he is used to rename the noun boy. Here's another example. The dish is in the sink. It is in the sink. The pronoun it refers to the dish in the sink. One more rule about personal pronouns. They can be masculine, feminine, or neither. When the noun refers to a place, thing, or idea, we use it. The pronoun it is neither masculine nor feminine.
Okay, so you can see at the top there we had the virtual professor giving the lesson, and then here's a standard T chart that shows the noun and to the right the applicable pronoun, and then there's the interactivity.
Look at the pictures below. Choose the correct pronoun.
And the nice thing about the lesson module is, you know, the student can check real time their work. So let's say, for example, they select the incorrectly, they can check it and see that they got it incorrect. And they can easily go back up and watch the video again to review. The interactive pieces go on. And there's more video input.
Now let's learn a few more pronouns. They are I, we, and they. The pronoun I is used when you are referring to yourself. For example, I like to read. The next two pronouns are plural as they refer to more than one person. The pronoun we is used when you are referring to yourself and others. For example, we walk to school. The pronoun they is used when you are referring to a group or more than one, but you are not in that group. For example, they are dancing.
Okay, so again, it's a similar layout with the T chart and the interactive pieces. So I'm going to go back up for the sake of time here. And okay, so we looked briefly at the entry assessment, a little bit in a lesson module. Then there's the exit assessment. And again, we're assessing the same thing, but the questions are a little different. I wanted to just give you a feel for the different types of questions. So let me just show you one here.
Look at the picture. What kind of question could you ask about this picture?
And then they have their options, audio, or they can read it. And then this gives you a feel for a more complex assessment question.
Bees make honey. A beekeeper collects the honey. First, the beekeeper collects the honeycomb from the beehive. Next, the beekeeper puts the honeycomb in a machine called an extractor. The extractor takes the honey out of the honeycomb. The beekeeper pours the honey into a jug. The honey must sit for 12 hours. Finally, the honey is put into jars or containers. Now the honey is ready to eat. Which sentence below expresses an opinion about the work of a beekeeper?
So we don't have to go through all the options, but I just wanted to give you a feel for the variety of questions that are standards-based in the different areas of the assessment. So let me back out of here. And before I show you the reporting, because I think it's important to see what information you get, I did want to mention briefly the American School Culture module. This culture module really has, it's unrelated to the standards-based assessment and standards-based lesson. Really, the whole point that we developed this was really to help with the socio-emotional needs of the beginning or newcomer student. And what we did is we broke it into 6 chapters, and the goal is to help them be more comfortable in their new school environment, in the American culture. So it covers things like school day and school rules, class participation, school resources, morning break and lunch, American holidays and traditions, and lastly, extracurricular activities. And each section also has a scaffolded vocabulary builder. And the goal there really is we're just helping them with functional vocabulary, maneuvering in and around the school environment. So with that, I'm going to log out, and I will log back in as a teacher so that you can get an idea of what the reporting is like. Okay, so I'm logged in as a teacher, and I will go to the entry assessment into the grades and the user report. So this is a demo account. You know, for obvious reasons, I can't show you a live class. But so, for example, a teacher would have all of his or her students underneath here, okay? And we'll select language student 2. And then what you get, the first level of reporting is you get the overall percentage correct in those 3 buckets that we've been talking about. Then you're able to drill down further. And what we did is we tried to make it very simplistic, but give you enough detail to have a good basis. So in the foundational literacy, we're looking at letter knowledge. The skills in letter knowledge are alphabet sequence, upper lowercase, vowel consonant discrimination. The second part of it is phonemic awareness, and the skills we're assessing are blending sounds, medial vowel substitution, counting syllables, rhyming, and sentence syntax. And then the third aspect is phonics, looking at letter sound symbol relationship and beginning last sound identification. So then it tells you how many questions they got correct related to these skill areas. Then you can click here, and there's a recommendation, and David was talking about there on that last slide, are the downloadables. So I'll click on one. But essentially, we have downloadable support, and these are proven classroom activities that can be done either in a small group setting or a full class setting. We have very discrete instructions on how to do the activity. I'll just kind of scroll down slowly to give you a feel for it. Some cutting out of cards and things. But we wanted to make sure that, we emphasize that really our goal is to, first of all, assess the English learner and really understand where they're at, and then have them go through the lesson modules. But in addition, we can't, obviously the computer's not going to solve all the problems, but also have activities that you can use in the classroom, again, that are standards-based, that really correspond nicely to the lesson modules in the online content. So that is, I know I'm scrolling fast, nobody can really read this, but I just wanted to give you a feel for the types of downloadable activities that we have for each section. So with that, what I'm going to do is I will click back over and I want to open it up for any questions. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Okay, well, Christy, if you want to wrap things up, that would be great.
Thank you, Jennifer and David. As you can see, Language Tree Online has a lot to offer. So if you would like more information, have any questions, or would like to request a quote, please contact us at Studica. We will be happy to help. You can reach us via email at info@studica.com. That's info@studica.com. Or call 888-561-7521. And I will be sending a follow-up email that will include this information and a recording of the webinar, so you can always reply to that as well. Thank you and enjoy your day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.